I suppose we're talking about Transformers IDW Comics, specifically Series 1, or is it Season 1? What is it specifically called?
It's like Phase 2,
Phase 2,
Season 1,
Season 1.
which is divided by the Dark Cybertron crossover. That's about it.
I should have known that because I was reading those ridiculously hard to find collection series that they were releasing.
Yeah, you found quite a few, and they were just scattered around. Like, apparently even the reading order was weird in those.
Yeah, they tried to make it like chronological, but then they didn't include everything. So
yeah, so we had to get our reading order off people on Reddit.
But anyway, before we go into much, we'll get the riffraff out of the way. I am Josh, and this is a new person who is.
I'm Callum.
Yeah, it's Callum.
Hello.
So yeah, like I said a few seconds ago or whatever, we're going to be talking about IDW leading up to Dark Cybertron, because a lot of shit happened, and it was way more, like, I don't want to say ridiculous, but some of the stuff in the comics is way more ridiculous than I thought, but in a really good way.
Lots of stuff happened.
So first of all, like, how much of the comics have you actually read, Callum?
Well, I had read because last year there was a Great Humble Bundle that IDW were doing because of the start of the new continuity, and I bought the second tier of it, so it's the majority of stuff up to the end of this phase that we've both just read.
You told me about that, and like the fool I am, I was like, no, I'll carry on reading the collections.
Yeah, I warned you. I gave you a couple of warnings.
God.
So I have read all of the first parts. I've read the Simon Furman Infiltration, all those limited series. I read everything at this point, all the IDW comics, even the weird zombie crossover to Infestation. That wasn't great, but it's weird. So yeah, all Megatron ongoing, and now this.
So mine's like, I can't even begin to trying to find what I have and haven't read, because the fucking collections that I decided to read made it so awkward to track what I had and hadn't read.
All over the place.
Like, I read like Phase 1, Volume 1 of that collection. It had like, I think it was Optimus's face on the front. Actually, it might have been Megatron. It was Megatron. The Phase 1 has Megatron on the front.
I think they were rotating people's faces on those.
And then I switched to Phase 2 because I thought I would, every Transformers show and everything and license always has just them rooted in Earth with the inevitability that they eventually have to do stuff on Cybertron. And I thought I would just cut all that stuff out and go straight to Cybertron.
Predominantly, there's a few space traveling. They go back to Cybertron a couple of times, but predominantly it's set on Earth with side adventures and Cybertron.
And that's also not saying that the stuff that happens on Earth is bad. I was just more interested in stuff that I haven't specifically read or digested before in other Transformers shows and media.
But this recent stuff is better. Well, I say recent.
It's very old.
Yes, Dark Cybertron is 6 years old. That's us talking.
Which shows how on point we are with following trends and everything.
We're quite up to date.
But
yeah, we'd like to add that we actually don't really know much.
Yeah, we don't know what's coming either. So
we'll discuss that at the end.
Yeah, definitely. First. But because the series are separate, it's two series basically that prelude Dark Cybertron in Phase 2, Season 1.
Yes.
Which is Mauler Meets the Iron Robots in Disguise. Robots in Disguise following the politics of Cybertron, and Mauler Meets the Eyes like some sort of evangelical pilgrimage to the Cybertron Holy Land.
It's meant to be a mission to find the Knights of Cybertron with the help of a map within the broken matrix of leadership. They quickly make no progress, and that is the backdrop.
Yeah, which
shenanigans.
Even it's when you look at the characters in those series as well. Like Mauler Meets the Eye have a lot of external characters, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
It's Ultra Magnus and Hot Rod and Chrome Dome, but like Robots in Disguise has all of like the G1 characters,
It has more traditional characters,
like Bumblebee, Starscream, Prowl, Wheeljack, Anhard. But which one do you think you preferred in general out of the two?
Out of the two, I preferred More Than Meets the Eye. I found it very refreshing to read, seeing it go off in a really different direction. You know, a toy franchise that's been established for 30 years, and it to suddenly just go off into its own corner, away from humans, away from Cybertron, to be able to do emotional stuff and like character based writing. I thought it was quite impressive.
Yeah, there was a load of like emotional moments, like really emotional moments at points. And it's like they can literally do anything with that storyline. I know it eventually came back to it loops to Dark Cybertron because they had to have a big overarching thing. But like they with More Than Meets the Eye as well, they can invent new things that have nothing to do with Cybertron or whatever, or pre-existing lore, like the Decepticon Justice Division.
Decepticon Justice Division, like that medical station, the med bay, and
what was it called? Give me a second. Delphi Medical Station.
Yeah, and the viruses, the cybercrosis, and yeah, and the Tyrestor.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, and like they have like the Galactic Federacy as well.
Galactic Council,
yeah. It's just I know there's part of me which is like, when they started bringing that in, I was wondering whether the Quintessons were going to be like the Council of the Federation or something.
You were going to cut to them. I mean, we didn't see the Council. That might.
It's true. We don't know. It could be.
There have been a couple of symbols scattered around, so they exist, but we haven't seen them yet.
There's a couple of things in More Than Meets the Eye that are like set up and then they're never resolved as well.
Yes,
like
but
the Necrobot and the Lunar One being a giant space like ship, I guess.
I have a feeling though it'll get addressed as things go on, because there's a lot of things that are hinted at in early issues that come to pass. In the end of this. So, like Brain. Well, actually, I'm not going to say we haven't said spoilers yet, so I won't go into specifics. But seeing as I said that, what did you think of Robots in Disguise, the other ongoing series?
So for me, I'm really torn between the two because I feel like More Than Meets the Eye is objectively better paced and has more stuff going on and is more interesting to read. But Robots in Disguise has some of like my favorite individual character moments of characters that I've loved since I was a kid. Like, so I'm very biased.
It's easier for you to judge.
Like whoever whatever writer came up with the idea for Starscream to become a politician is just like, it's perfect.
It's to scheme his way up.
It's the natural extension of his character, like so much.
And I think he's the most interesting character in Robots in Disguise. You know, whenever there was an issue led by him, I will say that Robots in Disguise is written in first person, so every issue will change. Will change narrators essentially, and they'll come up in bubbles while events go on. I thought the issues that had Starscream in were the best ones because it's interesting to get what his actual inner thoughts are, and typically he's scheming the entire time.
Yeah, and some of his inner thoughts as well aren't what you would expect them to be. Like, he is scheming, and he's being Starscream, but sometimes he's like double guessing himself. He's like, should I be doing this? You know, like
sounding a little guilty almost.
Yeah, it's super interesting. We won't get into too many spoilers, but there's a moment I love where he's finally got everything that he wants, and then in the distance he spies something.
Yeah.
And then, like, the frame changes to his face.
Monologue.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, that's great.
But so yeah, I think I prefer More Than Meets the Eye because even like some of my favorite G1 characters have character moments in More Than Meets the Eye as well. Like, after Rung has been something happened after. You know what? Spoilers.
We'll say spoilers from here on.
After Rung has been shot by Swerve, and then has to regain his memories or whatever. They keep telling him stories at the pub. And then at the end of that, there's this politician dude, and they never say his name. And I was reading it, and I was like, oh, who the hell is this guy? They must be like withholding his name for some reason. Seems like a pretty good dude, though. He's friends with Orion Pax. Last page of the issue, it reveals that he's Senator Shockwave.
Senator Shockwave, yes.
I was like, oh my god, that's amazing.
And I believe the end of the Shadow Play, which is the name of that arc, it ends with him becoming Shockwave, if I'm right.
Yeah, he gets taken to like the 1984 correction, like room 101.
One of the institutes.
Like room 101, wipes his memories, like turns him into an emotionless politician, I guess. But
it's hard not to feel a bit sorry for him there. I mean, it's just all your emotions taken out.
It's terrible. But without going too far into things, what would you say your favourite arcs were from like More Than Meets the Eye?
From More Than Meets the Eye, for favourite moments, I really loved the Spark Eater issue when they discover.
Yeah, that's really early on as well.
And everyone, it's very early on, because then it builds up the relationships. I thought the Shadow Play, so the stuff on Cybertron, was really good because it like changed genre like every issue. It went from like a heist at the end, but then at the start it was like detective and action. So it changed quite a lot, and I did quite like the final arc with Tyrest, even though it got quite ridiculous. But it was a nice ridiculous.
Yeah, but you mentioned to me that was that the storyline that they specifically were influenced by Russell T Davis's Doctor Who
finale. The writer James Roberts said that he was inspired by Doctor Who, and in particular, its finales.
It makes perfect sense.
It does make perfect sense.
Chief Justice Tyrest is like a MacGuffin machine that will kill everyone.
And, that's the portal.
Yeah. And that moment's awesome as well, where it cuts to like all of the different Cybertronians who are what's they call it? They're not
who were constructed cold.
Constructed cold, yeah. And of course Starscream is one, which I thought was amazing.
He's crying out for Megatron, I believe.
Yeah, he says Megatron, but we spoke about this the other day. Like, is he doing that out of fear, or is he doing that because he wants Megatron, or is he doing it because he's the first thing he thinks of when he's threatened is Megatron? Like it was a really weird line.
Crying out for help, probably, maybe he's helped. Megatron helps him so much.
He could be crying out for help because not a lot of them were people calling out for help, right? Like, it cuts to Soundwave holding Ravage, and Ravage is dying, and he just screams like somebody help him.
Even sadder with context of the final couple issues of Robots in Disguise.
Yeah, that was so sad. They treat Soundwave very differently to everything else. Like all of the other shows that they've the ways that Transformers have treated Soundwave.
Yes, they treat him as more sympathetic. He's not just emotionless. He deeply believes in the Decepticon cause.
Because I was thinking about that the other day. Like, most of the time, Shockwave and Soundwave are pretty similar with how they talk. In more recent Transformers shows. Like, Transformers Prime, they made it so Soundwave just doesn't talk. And then he has one line in it. But, like, if you were to combine, like, Shockwave, his modern version, with, like, G1 Soundwave, they're pretty much the same, with, like, just logic, short sentences, and how they talk. But in the comics, like, Soundwave is basically just, like, another... He talks like other Decepticons talk.
Soundwave, towards the end of Dark Cybertron, Soundwave... So, no, that's Shockwave. Shockwave is monologuing ever-increasing rates along Dark Cybertron. And Soundwave has a few issues where it goes into his inner thinkings. And you were saying to me that you were finding that hard to reconsole with the voices.
Oh yeah, how you read it.
Yes.
Because usually he's like, Ravage, eject, operation, whatever the hell. But in this, he's like having full sentences, and I was like, "Hello, Optimus." I couldn't do it. I was like, "They just work."
Yeah, but it was quite because typically they would be on similar lines, and it was interesting seeing how they differed. Shockwave and Soundwave.
Yeah, Shockwave's an interesting one voice wise as well, because you have G1 Shockwave, who sounds like he constantly has something stuck in his throat, basically.
He's in pain. Sounds like he's in pain.
And then and then every other version of Shockwave is like cold, just like logic. He pretty much ends every sentence by saying logical, like.
Well, yeah, that's his beliefs. But I still have the G1 voice in my head. I think of when I was reading. I just love that voice.
It's great, and it's the oh god, he voices so many people. I always forget his goddamn name. He's like the go-to guy to voice Christopher Lee when he's not.
Well, that's the same guy
doing stuff. Yeah, he's really famous. Corey Burson.
Ah.
He's in like everything. He's in the Clone Wars. He's in G1 Transformers, obviously. I'm pretty sure he was Hugo Strange as well in the Arkham City. The video game. Protocol 10.
Yes, I obviously it's easy to get off track with these, but I probably thought the final. Oh, and of course the aftermath of Overlord's attack, because that's the Chrome Dome and Rewind section with the video montage.
That was great as well.
Yeah, that was my favorite moment, probably. No, what about you? Or your favorite?
From More Than Meets the Eye, they're very similar to yours. Yeah. Like I love the Spark Eater. See, I think the Spark Eater issues are the first time I was like, oh, so it's like it's way more like serious and almost like gory and than I think the comics would be. They literally in one of I think it's like the third issue or the second issue have a creature that rips people's sparks out.
Yes.
and eats them.
I think it was it might have been a way of saying no one is safe, because there are a fair few characters that if they don't die at least get shot in the head or very much injured.
And then they have the DJD, the Decepticon Justice Division, who just do terrible, terrible things to people. And then you have Fortress Maximus, who has like PTSD and murders everyone. It was ridiculous. But it awesome, ridiculous in a great way. I just didn't expect it to go that far. So I think if I was to say my two favorite like arcs, I would probably say that the Delphi Medical Station and probably the Senator Shockwave, the Shadow play arc. They were great.
They were very good. I wanted to bring up something because I look at the wiki alongside, and well, you know, at the very end when it's revealed that Brainstorm is not quite with us, not in undead state. Well, they were saying that when the Spark Eater passes him by, you assume it's because of the briefcase, but in actual fact, he didn't have a spark. I was just like, damn, I didn't. This is planned very far in advance, which makes me think even though there's a couple of like things that didn't get finished in this first
they're
phase,
definitely going
to
do it.
Going to get addressed.
Yeah, God, that's awesome. There's a lot of stuff like that as well. Like we kept finding tidbits of things about like names of issues and how it was relating to music that we like and things like that.
Yes, he posted soundtracks alongside them, and they were pretty similar. Which
is awesome.
The entire final arc, Remain in Light, may or may not be named after a Talking Heads album.
So yeah, it was just great where like the comics are as good as what they are, but then everything that we're learning about the comics aligns with like interests that are common to us as well.
Yes,
it's awesome. Like the Doctor Who thing as well. But this is a tougher question because I don't even think there's necessarily arcs in Robots in Disguise, because it is just one arc with a side arc going on in the background, pretty much. But
Yes.
I guess I'll phrase it with like, what were your favorite moments from Robots in Disguise?
My favorite moments from Robots in Disguise. I think Starscream. I think everything to do with Starscream. I think he really takes the limelight here in these series because you get a bit more. He's doubting himself a bit more, but at the same time, he's determined to do anything to get into power, and that makes it very interesting to see what happens. Because he's even if he's being silent, you don't know what he's planning.
Yeah.
That made it really interesting. Basically, his rise and his scheming. That was my favorite arc. But my favorite moments were probably the Megatron and Devastator. The end of that I loved, and the Soundwave Shockwave stuff at the very end
Yeah,
of
that
Robots
was
in
great
Disguise,
as
straight
well.
away leading into Robots in Disguise.
This is jumping ahead slightly, but I wonder how Soundwave is going to take Megatron's choice at the end of Dark Cybertron.
Well, he did not take it very well.
No.
Going off the ending, which itself leaves very interesting. We'll address it when we get to Dark Cybertron, but it was very effective at opening stuff up
Yeah.
at the end of that.
I guess for me it's obviously my favorite thing. Honestly, my favorite thing out of all of it is Starscream's rise and fall. Basically, my favorite moment was probably when he finally kills Metal Hawk, because like it's gonna happen. Like it's Starscream.
It's coming.
I didn't, because there's moments where you legitimately do question whether he is trying to do things for the better.
Yes.
And they somehow managed to time him killing Metal Hawk as one of those moments.
Yeah.
Because like there's brief moments where Wheeljack like saves Starscream and says that he's a friend, and then later on when Wheeljack is injured, Starscream's healing him still, but talking to him, even though Wheeljack can't reply, he's talking to him like he's having a conversation with a friend.
Yes.
You said the other day is super interesting because like Starscream's fine when it's only his ego in the conversation, but as soon as someone else is talking, it's hard.
Yeah, he in that issue when he's talking to Wheeljack, he talks to a dead robot. Then Metal Hawk, he talks to Megatron, who's trapped in a containment field, and then he talks to Wheeljack, who's being kept alive and can't talk. It's just funny, and he dresses them as his friends,
which is really sad. Like it's pathetic in a way.
Like his friends are people that can't talk back to him.
That he's like he can't have a decent conversation with anyone who can question what he's saying. Yes. Basically, he has to talk to a blank wall to be able to say anything truthful, really. Because he talks truthfully to those people. Like with Metal Hawk, he legitimately is like, "I'm sorry, I killed you," but that's so like psychic. Like it's so messed up, but it also says a lot about like his flaws.
Desire for power.
Yeah, it's like he's going against part of himself despite working entirely for his own benefit. There's still part of him which is like, well, no, you're not doing what you should be doing, you know?
Yes. And also there's multiple times where he says, "Oh, why can't I be trusted? Why people don't think I'm being honest." But then, he very clearly shows why you shouldn't trust him throughout the series. So it's multifaceted. He wants it all. He wants it all. He wants friends and power, and maybe you can't have both. As Bumblebee's tale in this proves, Bumblebee gets a lot of shit.
He does. I'm trying to. I think this isn't really a favorite moment, but my other favorite thing was just like that the inclusion of the nails and Metal Hawk.
Yeah, it added an interesting. I thought there were a lot of interesting concepts here. A primal Cybertron that is trying to fight back almost at times, or it seemed that way at first. And then you have, these nails, these non-aligned indigenous life forms. I wonder why that was never fully said all the time.
Yeah, and you have all of these nails returning to Cybertron. One of which is Sky-Byte, who is one of the most he's really underused, but the fan community love him. I can't remember what series he's in. I think it was like Energon or Cybertron or something.
Hmm.
Actually, it might have been one of the sequels to Beast Wars. I don't really know. He's literally been in like one thing, and then has had tons of toys that fans voted to be made. But he was pretty much defined as being like a poet.
Yes.
And
It's
in the
just hilarious.
comics, they do the same thing.
Yeah, it's just hilarious when it cuts to the bar later
And it's
and
jazz. It's jazz at
doing slam
Sky-Byte.
poetry. I love that.
But we're missing the objective best thing about Robots in Disguise. And that is how they treated one of the most discarded and underappreciated Cybertronians in Transformers media. And that is Dirge.
It's Dirge. That Transformer I love. One, for its name, and then second, because he's just... I don't know. I just think of that GIF, that GIF when it's zooming into his face as he's smiling after he's just blasted a cliff. It really warmed my heart to him, and to see him, he gets a lot of attention in this. I mean, More Than Meets the Eye gives a lot of attention to characters that hadn't got that much attention, but Dirge, it was just surprising to see Dirge get so much attention as a hostage.
He has a notoriety of being like the Decepticon who always gets killed.
Yes.
And usually it's without even having any dialogue. He just kind of shows up and dies. So he became like a running gag.
You're expecting it throughout, because Prowl and RC are going for him. Who I forgot to mention, I think they're also my second favourite characters. Prowl, because he just seems to turn off being concerned and being a complete dick at just like the flip of a coin. And then RC was just a badass who didn't really know what she was thinking until towards the end.
There's part of me that wishes that Prowl hadn't been mind controlled, that it was actually just him.
Yeah, he was going mad and turning to...
Because there were so many, and this is another thing about both series, there's an absolute ton of like 1984 references, which is strange, but it is, like with the underground facilities like Room 101. The robots literally say 1984 that Tyrest uses.
Warfare.
So it made sense to me that like the policing Autobot would be going darker and more authoritarian.
Yeah.
But the whole bombshell thing that was revealed that he was mind controlling him kind of came out of nowhere. It's like
Megatron showing back up controlling
him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I actually legitimately liked that they took Dirge and made him a bigger character. But you reminded me of like how underused characters in More Than Meets the Eye were expanded upon. We haven't even mentioned Whirl, and Whirl is amazing.
Fantastic characters in More Than Meets the Eye. They're all a bunch of misfits essentially. There's almost not a normal character on that ship.
It's like Whirl's introduction is him like mutilating bodies, and Cyclonus finds him.
Yes.
What the fuck?
That's it. Yeah, and there's so many cool characters. Yeah, Whirl is awesome. Did you like in Dark Cybertron when they all touch back down and you can see Whirl like victory posing on the ground? This is even before they get attacked by billions of insects. He's great.
Whirl's great. I think the another part of Muller Meets the Eye when you talk about underused characters that I forgot to mention was Farmer. He like goes from being just like a villain in the Delphi arc to being like the fucking Joker in the Tyrest.
He goes mad. He goes mad.
When he rips Ratchet's head, attaches it to his spark, and keeps him alive on like a restraining thing. Terrible. And something's happening with him as well that hasn't been.
Yes, he just gets dragged. He just gets dragged back
into like the. I don't know. It was like a Cybertopia or whatever. Is that what it was called?
Cybertopia. And Skid's got to see all whirring lights.
He did, and there was a giant Luna 1 looking type thing in there.
Yeah, it was. It looked mental. Yeah. It looked beyond comprehension, just like it was for Skids. Especially when they weren't even talking in human language; they were talking in like spheres.
Yeah. A lot of shows do that actually, where like it's like talking lights.
Yeah.
to represent some sort of other power. But so yeah, that were probably my favorite moments from it all.
Yeah.
I w-
Oh,
no,
sorry.
it's okay. You can go.
Well, I was going to say just one final thing before we perhaps head to Dark Cybertron is that More Than Meets the Eye manages to approach like romance in Transformers, like,
Yes.
and that is such a weird thing to start with. But like, if you had said that to me before reading, I'd have been like, well, how are they going to do that? But it's done very well in More Than Meets the Eye,
To the
and that's
point
that's
to
a
the
good big
point
achievement.
where it's like one of the most emotional moments are tied
Comes
to the
from that.
romance.
Yeah,
It's like Rewind and Chrome Dawn. That was like one of my favorite moments of the entire thing, and it's so sad.
so sad.
And in a way, like Tailgate and Cyclonus almost have something going on.
They have an unspoken. Yeah, it's like unspoken, or Cyclonus is just afraid of showing it.
I love
But yeah,
Cyclonus as well. He's so fucking good, so
he's
good.
awesome.
But before we move on to Dark Cybertron as well, I would like to just briefly say that some of the things I didn't like that much about all of it was there's a lot of just death that happens that ends up not being death. And this was probably my like least favorite thing about the entire comic run, where it would seemingly look like Swerve has just shot his own head off and then he'd be fine. But they obviously preface it with it has to be the spark, like the spark has to fade for them to actually die. Hence why Rung can get his own head blown off and survive. But then it's like later on when what happens to Bumblebee happens, when it had happened, I kind of didn't even take it as like, oh, he's gone now. It was like, oh, he'll get repaired. Because
you have to take consideration into the chest.
Yeah, it's because of how many times that happens and they're just fine. Because there's times where like where they look like they've been mortally wounded and they're fine. Like there's a couple of times I'm pretty sure where Cyclonus gets like stabbed through the chest and he's fine. But then when like Pipes is squished by Overlord, which was awful.
Yeah.
He's dead.
That was not a good moment.
Was it Overlord? It was, right?
It was Overlord.
Because I get confused between Fortress Maximus and Overlord, because it happened really close to each other and they're pretty similar on purpose.
And they fight each other on the ship, so I can see that.
But yeah, I think that's probably all good for Robots in Disguise and More Than Meets the Eye. But that we should just quickly preface that Robots in Disguise has a side story, which directly, the whole point of it is to set up Dark Cybertron. And sometimes it detracts from the flow of the main story because they're having to cut to...
It definitely detracts.
They're going to have to cut... They cut to Orion Pax because Optimus is like, I don't want to be a Prime anymore. I'm going to go back to be Orion Pax and fly the universe. Just explore.
Yes. And no one calls him Orion Pax. Everyone just calls him Optimus Prime. And he keeps addressing, I want to be called Orion.
But the main arc of that is Giaxus, who is Shockwave's mentor, I guess, doing something with these planets that Shockwave has seeded like years before.
Yeah.
And you don't really know what the hell's going on.
It's even quite confusing. There's one issue that cuts between time.
Yeah.
So it keeps jumping forward, past, present, and future, and it keeps jumping between those, and it makes it quite complicated to read.
Which was probably the point, but I thought it was too much. I couldn't follow what the hell was going on. Like, also the art style's different. It detracts so much from the Robots in Disguise run that it looks nothing. It could have been called its own thing, you know.
Yes, it really could.
But yeah, that basically accumulates in you finding out that Shockwave has seeded planets with different elements, basically, that represent like the fundamental laws of physics and the universe. So like time, is it like time, death, heat,
change
or whatever. And that Giaxus is working with him to basically crack the formula of life and the universe and the meaning of everything.
Yes, and it's to concentrate all the energies of not only the dead universe, which is the place that Jahaxis and that came from, entered, and to combine not only the energies of that universe but their current universe and concentrate it all into Cybertron to make sure the resources never run out
At every moment in time.
at every moment in
So
time.
time doesn't even exist. All that exists is Cybertron and Shockwave's godly rule over it, I imagine.
It's a bold, bold plan. And he gets very far with it in Dark Cybertron.
It's very, going back to Doctor Who, for anyone who's seen Doctor Who, it's very Rassilon in the End of Time. Where he's like, the end of time itself! And everyone's like, what? And he has like a god thing that he... Anyway. So yeah, overall, what did you think of Dark Cybertron now that we've prefaced it?
It was not as good as either. I think my main thing was it was very busy. It was trying to tell 3 stories. So you had the Lost Light looking for Metroflex, you had Orion at that point, and a team from the Lost Light going into the Dead Universe, and then you had Cybertron where you have an undead Titan, and basically the cast from Robots in Disguise are there. And it felt like a lot was going on. Like there would be times where things maybe just weren't moving because there was so much.
Yeah, they had to spend so much time justifying these characters coming together that Shockwave's plan for like 4 issues became, soon my victory will be at hand, and that he would just say that over and over again. It's like,
multiple phases of that.
Yeah, until everyone was in the right place within the story. And even when it was, I feel like his plan was kind of just so like off the cuff, ridiculous, that it was.
He was planning it for 4 billion years. He had plenty of time. He had plenty of time to complicate things.
It's true, actually, and I guess that there's also something to be said for it's so incomprehensible that only Shockwave can comprehend it.
Yeah,
but he's the only one who sees the logic in the.
I think once it's revealed, it's comprehensible. It's just that until then, it muddles it with Nova Prime and Galvatron coming.
Like that's another thing. Like when he opens the portal to the Dark Universe, what is it? The Dead Universe.
Dead Universe.
Nova Prime and Galvatron just like appear. And then you're like, oh, so has Shockwave been doing this to bring Nova Prime back and Galvatron? But then obviously he hasn't. No, there's a bigger plan.
He brought them back to make them a link.
Basically. And then there's things like Metroplex's thumb that has another element on it. There's a lot of things which...
A lot of stuff.
Where it's like, well, how did Shockwave anticipate the thumb being a thing? Like,
yeah, well, he was going to lead them back. Yeah, he led everyone back to Cybertron somehow, so time could collapse.
But in conjunction with this, you also have Megatron coming back.
Yes,
and despite everything, he sees that the threat to Cybertron is worth working with the Autobots for.
Yeah, this is just before he realizes this. Just before he gets split in half by Galvatron, and then for the remaining half, he's like in half. He's literally in half.
Yeah.
Bumblebee carrying him around,
and waits for a dramatic entrance that he tells Bumblebee.
He waits 15 minutes for a dramatic entrance.
That's an awesome thing about the IDW comics as well, is that they make Galvatron. They make Galvatron his own character. He isn't Megatron.
No,
he's an ancient Cybertronian gladiator.
Also similar. He's an ancient warrior. Megatron's stuck in his ways, as he realizes.
I just really like that. Like Cyclonus and everyone weren't just other Transformers who had been converted by Unicron and
they were given their own personality.
But
there were good moments.
Definitely, I was just about to say, like the conversation Starscream has with Megatron, where he's like, "Oh, I've done what you could never do," and Megatron just smiles at him. It might be just before Dark Cybertron, but it pretty much sets it up. But then during Dark Cybertron, Starscream is literally like not with the Autobots or Decepticons, and is just like surrounded by the ruin of his city.
Yeah.
Whereas the Autobots and the Decepticons are actually doing something to help. Starscream's scheming has literally just put him in ruins. Like,
He's very happy about that, Megatron. He
yeah.
makes mentioning that at multiple points. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
There's a couple of weird toy things that happen in Dark Cybertron as well. Like,
Yeah.
like G-Axis randomly becomes Starscream's body because he's like, I have a device that will mimic your alternate mode. And I was like, that was weird, I'll look it up. And it's because there was a Generations toy that was released of G-Axis, but it used the Armada Starscream mold. So they, in the comics, just made G-Axis have Starscream's mold at one point.
Yeah, and they were packaging toys with the issues. That's in some points, so they were lining it up. I think they got the order mixed up at some point, but that was the general idea.
Which, this is slightly, it's not really off topic, but it's not to do with Dark Cybertron that much. But you know Megatron's like stealth bomber jet body?
Yeah.
They released a toy of that.
Really?
With those comics, and I'm like, oh. It's so expensive though. But how did you feel that how Dark Cybertron concluded?
Well, out of the different arcs, I loved Optimus's conclusion with Nova Prime turning into all the different primes and really addressing the lineage.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that and the payoff. Shockwave being defeated by like emotion, not logic, seems kind of strange because I thought it would be so embedded in him.
It was one of those like cartoony moments where they make the villain realize the error of his ways, and that's what defeats him.
Yeah, but then how would you? Because you couldn't defeat him in a fight because Shockwave by that point had become this like Dark Lord, and he was like shooting massive bolts of lightning. He was like this big ball of electricity and energy by that point. But that seemed, even though he was previously a senator, it seemed a bit hard to believe. And then Megatron turning into an Autobot is a great idea, but perhaps maybe there wasn't enough dialogue with Bumblebee within the comic.
Yeah, I just thought that whole thing, it was weird that they had Megatron come back and be so staunchly Megatron, only to then not be so staunchly Megatron, if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, they had the whole thing where he revealed that he had been controlling Prowl the entire time and pulling the strings in the background. But then he gets out again during Dark Cybertron, works with the Autobots for the good of Cybertron, and then decides to become an Autobot. It was just very quick. And I think it was something to do with, like we've said, that there were so many different story threads. I feel like if there had been less going on, they would have been able to give more stuff towards that character choice for Megatron. But I agree, I think it's a really cool decision, because it has a lot of implications for like people like Soundwave in general, and Optimus.
Warning his master, because he's giving out about the Decepticon cause for the entirety of Dark Cybertron, and then he essentially gets betrayed. In his eyes, he gets betrayed,
which is terrible. Because you have that flashback where it shows that Soundwave was like basically impaired. He was so attuned to people that he was literally not able to. It's what they did with Soundwave is like he had giant anxiety attacks constantly because of his ability.
Being completely overwhelmed.
And then he uses the cassettes because he finds Ravage to be able to ground him, and he has friends that way, which is a really wholesome idea. But it also means that when he finds his place, like he becomes a Decepticon, that he's so radically with the Decepticon cause that it's almost, I'm just like, you feel like he's in the wrong, but you feel bad for him so much when he sees Megatron as an Autobot. Like,
yeah, it feels like he's been betrayed, almost. And it's the same, they set up sympathy for Shockwave as well through the Shadowplay stuff in More Than Meets the Eye. So then when he's actually just getting, when he's having that little breakdown at the end, you do feel sorry for him.
Well, yeah, because like he never would have done any of that stuff if it hadn't been for
No, it hadn't been converted
for the whole Sentinel Prime Room 101. Just, what's the name for the political movement that was happening at the time?
That was happening at the time.
Yeah, where they rank Cybertronians based off their alternative mode.
Functionalists.
Basically, the functionalists created Shockwave.
Yeah.
And he was trying to do his best to help people, and just he goes ridiculous. Like, he turns into this, like you were saying, like Dark Lord God thing. But you still feel sorry for him, it's a testament to how well the comics do character work, which has always been like the leading thing of Transformers, in my opinion. Even in G1, where they literally were all stereotypes on purpose because they were all written in 2 sentences in like a weekend. But that's why I love it so much. They build on that platform to make characters, and now we've reached the point where things like IDW can make them just complex.
Yeah, that is true.
So while I think Dark Cybertron was unnecessarily long and drawn out, it was, like you said, a great way to bridge and to conclude the first phase and to bridge us into the next with thinking about what could happen.
Yeah, it's not quite as good, and I'm looking, but it has got me looking forward now to the next phase, because there's a lot of things set up.
Which, unless you have any other thoughts specifically, brings us on to our conclusive point, which is what do we think will happen next?
Well, there are a lot of points to come from this. There are Megatron becoming an Autobot, which in itself is a gigantic point which has to alter the story significantly. I feel like whoever has him, and I believe More Than Meets the Eye features Megatron, I believe it has to revolve around Megatron, because that's a massive decision that I think deserves to be explored a lot.
Yeah, definitely.
More than perhaps the couple of issues that got in Dark Cybertron. There's also female Transformers who show up.
Oh yeah, we didn't even mention, like, Windblade.
Blowing through Metroplex, which is particularly interesting because in the very first spotlights, RC was said to have been constructed as an experiment, as a female, by Jhaxus.
By Jhaxus, yeah.
But now we know there's more. Now we know there's at least 3 more. So it adds up a whole, well, what's happened there? Are there more?
There's always a weird zone of Transformers media where they don't really know how to handle female Transformers. Like, at all. Like, I was talking to you about this the other day when I discovered that RC was, like, reluctantly added to the movie, but then they refused to give her a toy. And then it took until, like, 2010 or 2012 for her to get her first official toy.
That's ridiculous.
And even Simon Furman, like, when he had to justify female Transformers, didn't do it in a respectable way. He made them a plot point where the Autobots were getting called sexists for not having a female, so they specifically made a token female to be like, look, we're not sexist. It's ridiculous. I just kind of wish that the comics would just be like, there is female Transformers. I don't know why it's such, like, a point of contention. To me, anyway.
And the response to these comics was also shown that it is possible to have different types of fans. In 2018, while Lost Light was in its final bits, almost half of the attendees at the Transformers convention, I believe it was called TF Nation, almost half of attendees were women, aged between 20 and 30.
Brings me back to the G1 thing, where the only reason RC was added was because one of the people on the writing room had a daughter who loved the show, and when Hasbro were like, no, girls don't watch Transformers, he was like, well, actually, my daughter would love to see a female Transformer. And that's why she was added.
Yeah. So I'm hoping there'll be some interesting stuff there that doesn't go into the stereotypes you've set, but I trust the comics, considering what it's done so far, to not go into that too much.
Do you think that, carrying on with what we think will happen, do you think that Soundwave will be the new leader of the Decepticons?
I think Galvatron might be the new leader of the Decepticons.
Oh, that's a great point.
Just being like, we need a new approach.
Yeah.
So I feel like or Soundwave. It's potentially that Soundwave's going to look up to him.
Like he replaces Megatron with Galvatron. That's a great way to handle that. That would be awesome. Like the Galvatron Megatron connection. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
And is Bumblebee dead?
No one's truly dead in comic books.
No one's ever really gone.
But Bumblebee is expressly said as dead. Shockwave literally becomes a black hole. It becomes a singularity. I find it very hard.
They could do some time stuff with that.
Yeah, I know, but how long will they be gone? Is the question. Maybe more than that.
Yeah, I've been holding out on reading it for a while because I wanted us to have this discussion. I did read the first issue the other night, but I didn't get through all of it because for some reason I've been getting super tired. This heat is terrible. But yeah, unless there's anything you want to add, I feel like we covered quite a bit there.
Yeah. The only other thing I want to add is Orion Pax has reclaimed Optimus Prime.
Oh yeah,
the Autobot leader. Is it Optimus Prime? It's surely not Megatron. Surely Megatron isn't going to be allowed to become the Autobot leader, right?
Probably.
Surely.
I mean, there might be some sort of coalition.
Yeah, they walk out together at the end of Dark Cybertron, but is Optimus? I guess he's not reluctantly taking it back now. He was quite emphatic in Dark Cybertron, but it'll be interesting to see if he doubts himself again.
Yeah, I guess the other thing as well is that there's the whole Farmer stuff and the Cybertopia and the Necrobot. And the DJD. What are the What are the DJD going to do now? That Megatron's an Autobot.
Will they come back?
It's kind of like a Soundwave situation where they're so staunchly... Like, Tarn is obsessed with Megatron.
Yes.
What is he going to do when he finds out he's an Autobot?
Oh yeah, I didn't even think of that. Oh yeah. If he is in Mono CI, that is.
I feel like that could be a way to make. Maybe he wants to hunt down Megatron and kill him for betraying the Decepticons. Megatron's a traitor now. His job is to now hunt down Megatron.
Yeah, I hope the Justice Division come back.
God, that would be awesome. I love Tarn.
Yeah, Tarn was cool with his mask.
Yeah.
Decepticon mask.
And Voss's face is like they're all awesome. They're all of them.
It's hard to believe an Autobot symbol would look as cool as a mask.
It's That's a very good point. But anyway, yeah, I think we're all good then.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can do another video like this and we've both finished season 2 or whatever.
Wherever season 2 is, the reading order seems to get a bit mental.
A bit weird, yeah. We might have to do like a halfway point video. Yeah, cool. I think that's it then. And please, guys, make sure you leave comments and stuff. Obviously, if we've said stuff you disagree with and things like that, because that's always the thing on YouTube. But also like and subscribe. So yeah, see you next time.
See you, everyone.